Hi everyone, I'm Rowan and I'm the gardener around here. So I thought I'd film a quick garden tour and show you all around. Today is September the 19th. It's summer's last hurrah. We're having a beautiful sunny day, but unfortunately we didn't really have that many of them this year. We've had a very wet and cool summer this year, which has led to quite a disappointing result in the garden. But there's been a lot of successes too, so I'll show you around now. I practice no-dig gardening and most of my beds are in the ground with wood chip paths around them. The reason there's so many nets and other crop covers in this garden is because I choose to use organic methods. I don't use any synthetic herbicides or pesticides. The only fertiliser I use is one I make myself using comfrey. In this bed I've got leeks and a mixture of dill and coriander. There's some California poppies and I've got a few pak choi which are just struggling on against the slugs. In this bed I've got potatoes. I did 3 varieties this year. I did Setanta, which is a blight resistant variety, which does really well for me. And I also tried Aran Victory and a French variety I can't remember the name of right now, which did okay, but the harvests weren't that impressive. I've already dug up some of the potatoes and I've tried scattering radish seed down on the bare soil as an attempt at a green manure and just to have something in the ground over the winter, which is a new experiment for me, so we'll see how this goes. Under this netting I've got 4 Brussels sprouts which are doing really well for me this year. Last year I really struggled to grow any sprouts. I had just about enough for Christmas dinner and that was it. But I think this winter we'll be eating sprouts much more. Some decent sprouts starting to form here, so that's exciting. This is the result of an experiment from last year where I had some leeks which didn't turn out to much. They were pretty pathetic, didn't seem worth harvesting, so I decided to leave them in the ground and let them flower. And you can see here they look pretty good. I like them just as a decorative aspect, but even more importantly, as you can see, pollinators absolutely love them. I love to have flowers spread throughout my garden. I think they look lovely, and I once read that beauty is also a harvest, and as well as that, they attract pollinators, which is good for the environment, and it's good for me because they help pollinate things like my squash. I hate to see a healthy seedling go to waste, so often if I have too many, I'll just see if I can find a space to pop them in, and that's why I have these 2 extra Brussels sprouts here, which are actually doing much better than I thought they would. Here I have some nasturtiums and a few spare beetroot dotted in there. In here I've got my dwarf French beans, which you can see are looking a bit sad. That's because we had an early frost last week. And while I thought to cover my squash, I forgot about these. So they did get damaged, but they were mostly finished cropping anyway, so I'm not too devastated about it. There's still a few stragglers in here, which I'll be collecting this afternoon. But overall, these cropped pretty well for about 6 weeks over August and September. In here I've got a mix of kales at the back there, which has just started to bolt. There's a Siberian kale. That grew very vigorously, but I wasn't really that keen on the flavour. And then next to that is Black Magic kale, which is a Cavolo Nero type, which tasted really nice, but did struggle against pest pressure. In here I've got some carrots, which I'm going to finish harvesting this afternoon. Carrots were a bit of a struggle this year. I've heard a lot of gardeners say the same thing. My first sowings were all taken out by slugs, but I kept at it, kept putting seed down. I've ended up with an okay crop, not as good as last year. I've just pulled a couple out to have a look. This variety is called Kuroda. It's a Japanese variety. They're meant to be quite short and fat and good for compact soils, so I'd say overall, not bad. In this area I used to have peas, and then when they were finished I put in some winter radish. I've got black Spanish winter radish, green luobo winter radish, and then daikon. At the end there was a few rows of Chinese cabbage, but as you can see the slugs have had all of those. In here I've got parsnips, and this is my first time ever growing parsnips, and I'm quite pleased with how they've done. They seem fairly healthy and it looks like I might get a decent crop. Should we have a look at one? These look pretty promising from above, but as you can see there isn't really a whole lot there. I'm not really sure why this has happened. I do have quite rocky soil which can be on the more clay side of things, so maybe it's that. Maybe they just need a bit longer. Still, I'll get a few meals out of these. In this bed I've got cabbages and a few kale plants I planted recently to try and overwinter. This variety is called Omskirk Savoy, and it's doing quite well, but not all of them look so impressive. I'm also growing quite a lot of red cabbages because I love to eat them throughout the winter. I keep my cabbage covered with nets to try and keep pests off, and we have a lot of hares around here which will nibble anything they can. In here I've got broccoli. There's a mixture of purple sprouting and just regular broccoli. This struggled to get going this year and my harvests were a bit disappointing overall, but we've still been eating broccoli regularly from here for a good few weeks now. At this point I'm just harvesting side shoots from these now, but these are still just as tasty in a stir fry. In this bed is most of my leafy greens. There's perpetual spinach, Ford hook giant chard, and a few different types of lettuce in there. I've also got a couple of rows of beetroot and a few extra broccoli at the back there. These sticks with milk bottles on might look a bit odd to you, but that's what I use to keep the nets off of the vegetables. It works and it's free. Early on in this garden I was using raised beds, but quickly I realised that with the size of the vegetable garden I'm aiming for, it was just not going to be in my budget. In these beds I have the carrots that made it through the slugs, and then a mix of other seedlings that I couldn't see go to waste. So there's a few beans, there's some purple sprouting broccoli, pak choi, just a mix of things really, and just see what makes it. So I've just pulled out one of the carrots from this bed to see how they're getting on, and look at this. Wow, it's massive. I'm really pleased about this. This makes up for the disappointing parsnip harvest earlier. I like to grow herbs in pots. I have them dotted all over the place. They seem to do better in pots in my garden. I think maybe it helps stop them getting nibbled. This one has parsley, summer savoury, and a random lettuce. In this area I'm growing squash. At the front here is a variety called Buttercup, and at the back there is one called Ficta, which is a curry variety. It's been a pretty disappointing year for squash overall. This is a small and quick growing variety, but even so I've only got 3 to show for this year. The weather just hasn't really helped them. We had a very cool June where they just barely grew, and then after that things didn't really improve that much. Here is one of my courgette or zucchini plants. They've also really struggled this year. Obviously they're known for being prolific, but this year we've really only had enough for fresh eating. Last year I only had 2 plants and I had so many courgette that I was having to come up with new and creative ways to preserve them. But this year I have 3 plants and I'm not going to be able to put any up, which is a shame, but that's how it goes with gardening. This is a little temporary greenhouse that I use for growing tomatoes. What I would really love to have is a big polytunnel, but that's not quite in our budget at the moment, but we're working towards it. I haven't found much success with growing tomatoes outside here in Scotland. I think they really need that overnight warmth that a greenhouse or polytunnel can provide. I'm growing quite a few different varieties in here. I usually tend to pick varieties that come from Northern Europe. I think this is a Russian cherry tomato called Galina. I find that more hardy varieties cope a lot better with our weather. I have 10 plants in here, but I'm really only getting enough harvests for fresh eating. So that's a snapshot of how our vegetable garden is looking in September. It's been a pretty challenging year weather-wise, but there's still plenty to enjoy in the garden and I'm grateful for the harvest that we are getting. I hope that you found that interesting. If there's anything else you'd like to see around our croft, please let us know, and thank you for watching.